I'm giving you these verses that will help you all your life. Hebrews 8 and verse 12. Once you have confessed your sin, and we read there in 1 John 1:9, he forgives you and cleanses you, the devil will remind you of the sins he has already forgiven. God has forgiven. You know you're forgiven, but the devil say, but I know, you remembered last year you did this, or last month you did this, and you remember yesterday how you spoke to somebody. And the devil is always out to remind you of your past failures, even though you confessed it to God and asked forgiveness. So here is a great verse, Hebrews 8, verse 12. These are verses that helped me tremendously in my life as a young man. I will be merciful to their iniquities, the Lord says. Iniquities means sins. And I will not remember their sins anymore. Isn't it wonderful to know that God does not think of me as, yeah, I know what you did 2 years ago. He doesn't say that. Other people may say that to you. Hey, I know you, man. I know how you behaved 2 years ago. I know how you behaved last month. But when you go to God and you have confessed your sin, it's blotted out. He says, I will not remember your past sins anymore. And if God doesn't remember it, let the whole world remember it. You say, I'm not going to remember it because God has forgiven me. I'm very grateful to God for having forgiven me, but I'm not going to live in condemnation. Oh, last week I did this. Last month I did this. I'll tell you what you should feel condemned about. The sin that you did not confess to God. If there's any sin you have not confessed to the Lord, definitely you should feel condemned. But every sin that you confess to Jesus, you can be absolutely sure Jesus has blotted it out. He will not remind you of it at all. So, Jesus once said in Matthew 23, here's another great verse. Matthew 23, he told the Pharisees, in verse 25, Matthew 23, 25. You are all hypocrites. A hypocrite means a hypocrite is a person who looks holy on the outside but is filthy inside. He acts very holy in the presence of other believers and when he comes to church, but in his private life and his thought life, it's all filth. That's a hypocrite. And every one of us, you and I, have a tendency to become hypocrites. Let me repeat that. I don't care how holy you are. You and I have a tendency to become hypocrites, young or old. We have to fight it and say, Lord, I don't want to appear clean on the outside and dirty inside. No. He said to them in verse 25, you clean the outside of the cup, but the inside is filthy. Now, if you are given something in a cup, milk or a cup of tea or juice or anything, it's no use the outside being clean. You get a glass, it's no use the outside of the glass being clean. The inside is important. Even if there are a few scratches or dirt on the outside, it doesn't matter. The inside must be clean. And if the inside is clean, you will never pour any juice or anything into such a glass, will you? When you take a glass, you want to see if the inside is clean. And that's what God is saying. Make sure your inside is clean. It's very, very important. And for our inside to be clean, I told you, as soon as you're convicted that you did something wrong, confess it to the Lord. If you heard somebody, confess it to that person. Lord, I'm sorry, I did that wrong thing. Please forgive me. And the Lord will forgive you immediately. And every time, keep your conscience clean. Keep your conscience clean. That's very, very, very important. So,